I Doubt It podcast with Brittany Page and Jesse Dollemore.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Episode 963, it says right here on the paper, of I Doubt It podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Dollemore, joined today by your other host, the lovely, talented, and scholarly Brittany Page, everyone.
Well, it is Super Bowl Sunday, a exciting time for people who love sports. And
Practically a holiday in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cultural event. I think they talk about, like, the halftime show has the potential to get like 100 million viewers or something. That's like the expected audience for the halftime show. And Bad Bunny is performing for the halftime show. And that has caused a lot of anger from conservatives. I think the halftime show normally does, by the way. Maybe because the artists can be non-white and there are so many racists in the Republican Party. You know, Kendrick Lamar was the performer last year, and he had some themes that the Republicans didn't appreciate. And
I mean, it doesn't take much to set a conservative off into culture war land.
Yes.
And listen, I kind of get it. I get it. There are, I can't even do it.
I'm like, what?
No,
what do you get?
I was going to make a joke about how, there are people out there who aren't white, and look, they just shouldn't perform at a Super Bowl halftime show.
That's essentially the argument, especially with Bad Bunny, because his songs are in Spanish. And so now there's all this controversy with the Republicans of a Spanish
He's an American citizen.
And we're going to get to this when we get to the clip, but they're holding an alternative Super Bowl halftime show. Turning Point USA, I think, is behind it. And
the grieving Erica Kirk, I'm sure, will be headlining it.
Kid Rock is going to be performing, right? Isn't this right? This isn't just an AI generated thing that I saw?
I guess. I mean, I haven't really followed it because it's so not in I'm trying to engage less on the culture war shit. Only if just to mock them I will, but it's just used as distraction, and it becomes funny because they're really still trying it. And I think by this point everybody knows what the game is,
Yeah, apparently it's real because the Detroit Free Press says how to watch Turning Point halftime show featuring Kid Rock. I will not be clicking on that. And I guess it's kind of fascinating that they don't have any relevant artists today. It's like they might as well go back to Ted Nugent, I mean,
I know. Well, when's the last time Kid Rock had something on like the radio? Like 2003?
I don't know. I even saw a funny post where they're like, guys, I know everyone's mad because Bad Bunny is a Spanish speaker, and so you better watch this Kid Rock alternative where he's going to have ball with the ball, da bang, da bang. Like, what is he even saying in that song? I don't. So.
The bang, diggy, diggy.
Yeah, sorry that I did that.
Is that him, or is that one of those other garbage groups? Is that him?
I'm pretty sure that's Kid Rock, yeah. I mean, that person who wrote the joke, I'm trusting that they were being factually correct in their joke. So because of all of this, Republicans, they feed off of this stuff. So it's like the only thing they can talk about is that Bad Bunny is going to have a presence at the Super Bowl halftime show. And Fox News, Harris Faulkner, one of the hosts there, you often see her on Outnumbered on the show where like everyone is on the couch and there's usually one man and it's all women on either side of him. And she had to give a correction mid-report because she was reading some words from Bad Bunny and emphasized that he's not American, and then had to issue a correction on that.
It's out. We're not savage. We're not animals. We're not aliens. We are humans, and we are Americans. Well, that's the point. He is not actually, but okay. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell running interference after that.
This platform is used to unite people and to be able to bring people together with their creativity, with their talents, and to be able to use this moment to do that. And I think artists in the past have done that. I think Bad Bunny understands that, and I think he'll have a great performance.
My mistake. And I want to correct that immediately. The people he is talking about are not Americans. Bad Bunny is. I apologize. The Athletic talked to 58 anonymous NFL players about the halftime show, and one with, I don't even know who Bad Bunny is, another, I do not like it. I feel like there's...
Let me jump in, because, one, I didn't know who Bad Bunny was until, I don't know, 4 months ago or so. It doesn't mean I don't like him. It doesn't mean... Also, you can not know who a performer is and have that performer be a worldwide fucking sensation. You know what I mean?
He has 51 million followers on Instagram.
There are soccer players who I have no idea who they are, and their popularity or recognition exceeds that of any NFL player. I mean, it just because you don't know who they are doesn't mean they're not qualified or capable or worthy of hosting an NFL halftime show.
Right. Well, in the beginning, like I said, she was reading Bad Bunny's words, and that was from his speech at the Grammy Awards, because he also won Grammys. I think Album of the Year he won.
Yeah.
And when she was reading the NFL reactions, I want to hone in on that, because she read one that said, I don't even know who Bad Bunny is. There was another one on screen that said, I do not like it. I feel like there's tons of artists out there who are fans of the game. And someone else said, I don't speak Spanish, so I'm not a big fan. This is, the Spanish speaking element of this is like part of where all the quote unquote controversy is coming from. And really, it's a personal problem if you don't speak Spanish. And I say that as someone who doesn't speak Spanish. I had every opportunity to graduate high school being conversational in Spanish. And I consider it one of my great personal failures that I didn't use that opportunity when I was receiving a free education to graduate high school with knowing a language. And it continues to be a personal failure that I don't speak a second language.
A lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a personal problem. It's strange when people are like, I don't speak that, I only speak English. Yeah, not great. I mean, like, in other countries, they really value speaking multiple languages. And it's a shame that there's this culture of only speaking one language, it's English, and having that be like a feature of your personality that you're super proud of. I think we should change that. It should actually be like, no, we should speak multiple languages. That would be a good thing. That's a positive thing. That is education, and that's why Fox News probably doesn't like it.
I do find it interesting that she invoked the words, I believe reading, like you said, the statement of Bad Bunny when she's talking about, we're not animals, blah, blah, blah. This is coming from Harris Faulkner, who never has a cross word to say about Donald Trump. She's also someone who considers herself to be an adherent of the teachings and philosophies of Jesus Christ. She literally wears it around her neck to virtue signal that she's a Christian. She's constantly talking about faith and Christianity. And not having a crossword to say about Donald Trump on the calling people an animal front is interesting, because this woman, who's also black, where is she on the Donald Trump sharing the video that's an election conspiracy video, and then at the last couple of seconds of it show Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, their heads put over the AI bodies of apes? Like, where is she with that?
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about that. One thing before we get to it, I just want to correct what I said. Bad Bunny, yes, did win the Album of the Year. He's also the first artist to win Album of the Year for a Spanish language release. So it was a historic win as well. And I just want to make sure that I note that.
And by the way, because I want to really drill down on it, Puerto Ricans are Americans. Puerto Ricans are American citizens. They're just as much Americans as I am an American, as you are an American.
Well, and the way that these hosts and everyone seems to be making it a priority to talk about anyone who's not white as though they're not American. It reminds me, they're all like pulling a Jack Donaghy from 30 Rock. You remember that scene with Salma Hayek? I think she's...
Oh, yes.
She's like his mom's caretaker or something.
That's right.
In the episode, right?
Yeah, and they start dating. I'm a 30 Rock aficionado, so I'll take it from here, Brittany Page.
Yeah, give us the live read. Do the performance.
Well, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not quite that talented.
Okay.
Jack Donaghy, the main executive character from 30 Rock, is talking to his new love interest, Salma Hayek, who is Puerto Rican in the show. And he asked her, well, what do I call you? What can I call you? I can't call you Puerto Rican. She's like, yeah, I'm Puerto Rican. You call me Puerto Rican. And he goes, that doesn't sound right. That, like, he feels uncomfortable because in his mind,
right,
calling her Puerto Rican is a pejorative. It's to denigrate her, to call her a Puerto Rican.
Right. And so they're kind of revealing themselves like they have this Jack Donaghy approach to Puerto Ricans, where they do feel that it's something other than. And Harris Faulkner having to do a mid-segment correction illustrates that. But like we said, Donald Trump, with this video that he put on Truth Social, it's kind of remarkable to me that we're in 2026 and we're still having these fake debates over whether or not Donald Trump is a racist. It has been so apparent that Donald Trump is a racist. He started his career as a landlord, refusing to rent apartments to Black people. He has only continued. He first got on the political stage by saying that Barack Obama was not born in this country. How many years is this going to go on? Where he's just repeatedly doing the racism, and we're like, is he a racist?
In his announcement for the candidacy to be president of the United States in 2015, he started it with, Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers, but I assume some are good people.
Yeah.
The conversation ended then. I mean, we saw the both sides comment. Oh, there's good people, very fine people on both sides at Charlottesville. You've got the Nazis and you've got the anti-fascists, the anti-Nazis. Very fine people on both sides.
Yeah, it's how much longer is he going to be given the benefit of the doubt, including when he continues to engage in overt displays of racism, like sharing a video of President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama as apes, their faces put on the bodies of apes. So disgusting. He actually ended up deleting it, which is pretty surprising, I think. I'm shocked that they didn't just lean into it, because I think it would be popular with much of the base.
Of course.
And they tried to blame it on a staffer, which is interesting because they seem reluctant to blame it on any particular staffer, because which staffer is it? I mean,
which staffer and why have they name them and fire them? But the fact that nothing has happened, no staffer's been named, no one's been fired, tells you everything you need to know that it was Donald Trump. It was Donald Trump at 11:44, I believe was the time, p.m. in the residence. There's no staffer posting on his behalf in the middle of the fucking night.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've heard this yet, but he was asked on Air Force One this weekend, given he starts to tell his story, his side of the story, quote unquote, of what happened here, and he tries to avoid taking credit for it and also refuses to apologize.
Social media post that you took down earlier today, the White House says that a staffer sent it. Who sent it, and are you going to fire them?
No, I looked at it, I saw it, and I just looked at the first part. It was about voter fraud in someplace, Georgia. There was a lot of voter fraud, 2020 voter fraud, and I didn't see the whole thing. I guess during the end of it, there was some kind of a picture that people don't like. I wouldn't like it either, but I didn't see it. I looked at the first part, and it was really about voter fraud and the machines, how crooked it is, how disgusting it is. Then I gave it to the people. Generally, they look at the whole thing, but I guess somebody didn't, and they posted, and we took it down, and we turned it. But that was a voter fraud that nobody talks about. They don't like to talk about that post. We took it down as soon as we found out about it.
Mr. President, a number of Republicans are calling on you to apologize for that post. Is that something you're going to do?
No, I didn't make a mistake. I mean, I look at a lot of thousands of things. I looked at the beginning of it. It was fine. And they had that one post, and I guess it was a takeoff. By the way, a lot of people covered. If you look at where it came from, I guess it was a takeoff on The Lion King. And certainly it was a very strong post in terms of voter fraud. Nobody knew that was at the end. If they would have looked, they would have seen it. And probably they would have had the sense to take it down. But that was a takeoff on The Lion King. And a lot of people were covered on in different positions. So, but I spoke to Tim Scott. He was great. Tim is a great guy. He understood that 100%.
You mean Tim's not an ape? Tim shouldn't have his face superimposed over the body of a monkey or an ape? You fucking vile, sinister, white supremacist piece of shit, Donald Trump. Also, what he's saying of the Lion King thing, and this is what you're seeing if you're on Threads or any of these other platforms where the conservatives are trying to take over, they're showing a bunch of other videos of like Nancy Pelosi and different people with their faces on the bodies of different animals, like Lion King. In this particular video, I played the entire thing. It's like 1 minute and 9 seconds on my YouTube channel. It's just the Obamas in like a 3 or 4 second thing. They don't include all the other things. So is Donald Trump he's so aware of all of this content that's out there? Or is he just now trying to scramble and act like, oh, and I would have been upset too. You shared the video. You're the one who intimated that Barack Obama, our first black president, wasn't born in America, was born in Africa, wasn't qualified to be president of the United States under the Constitution, that he was fraudulently elected to the office of president because of the fact that he was an African. This is just Republican Party politics showing their ass, showing who they are.
I always find it interesting when the press asks Trump, is he going to apologize? Because when has Donald Trump ever apologized for anything? And like he said, I didn't make a mistake. Well, he can't admit that he makes mistakes. He can't admit when he does something wrong. He can't apologize. I mean, that's who and what he is. So it's disgusting because in normal times, there would be a situation where we get some sort of, maybe even half-assed apology, and that's just not possible here, especially when he posted it and meant it. I mean, that's what I believe, because
of course,
given the history of his leaning into racism, particularly because it excites his base.
Not only that, let's even, we can just right now look at who he attacks on a daily basis. Black women reporters who ask him questions. He does not deliver the amount of vitriol and venom and hatred and disdain and disrespect for white reporters.
Absolutely.
He may give them a little jab here and there, but he does not go as hard as he does against the Rachel Scotts, like he does against the Rachel Scotts or the
Yamiche Alcindor.
Yamiche Alcindor, April Ryan. Right. So many you can just name off the top of your head. I'm not even like in with these people. I don't know these people, but I know their names because they are the target of the president of the United States, who is an avowed white supremacist. And I don't mean white supremacist like, oh yeah, he's a racist. I mean, he is a white supremacist. He believes that white people are better, are smarter, are genetically more superior. He's a Nazi fuck. That's what I'm saying.
And I totally agree. And it's been the case for a long time. And I'm really sick of how much deference is given to these people. The same thing happened with Elon Musk, where he is doing Nazi salutes. He is talking about the declining white birth rate. He is
constantly posting about remigration.
Yeah, he's
genocide,
supporting the Germany's far right party, the AfD. Like, everything that he does indicates that he's a racist, and yet we have to be like, oh, we don't know what's in his heart. We don't know what's going on. Even if Donald Trump were to apologize for that post, is he going to apologize for his lifelong record of leaning into and amplifying racism? You can't take that stuff back.
Taking out full ads in the New York Times calling for the death penalty for individuals who were innocent of the crime Donald Trump was accusing them of, the Central Park Five.
Yeah, I mean, he has injected this into the discourse. He has amplified it. He has ensured that the people that support him are engaging in this and participating in it. And it's disgusting.
Listen, he invited, going back to the Puerto Rican thing, by the way, he invited that dog shit little worm comedian to the Central Park Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden. Would I say Central Park? The Madison Square Garden rally they had just before the election, who said that Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage.
Right.
Like, fuck off that you're not a racist. secure that nonsense somewhere else. Try to sell it like you're a huckster to some other crowd that doesn't have enough two brain cells to rub together to the low information rubes of Fox News. And even they know it. They know to be quiet. Oh, let's be hush-hush about this. This is how we believe. This is what we believe. But we know it's not socially acceptable, so we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah, and so the same thing is kind of happening right now with the media, where Donald Trump said something in an interview last week where he indicated one of the lessons that he has learned from the assault on the people of Minnesota is that they need to have a softer touch, and the media automatically took this line and reported it as though Donald Trump has learned his lesson and he understands that he needs to, lighten up and he needs to pull back. And
soften his tone, soften his, it's another phrase they were using.
Yeah, and of course that's not happening. I've seen numerous accounts now posting messages that they're receiving from people on the ground in Minnesota that are clearly indicating that things have not become softer, things have not been lightening up, and yet the media runs with this. And there was an interesting moment where, PBS NewsHour has this segment where they have like a left versus right, and normally it is Jonathan Capehart and David Brooks.
David Brooks, who's been conspicuously absent for the last couple weeks after his name was dropped multiple times in the Epstein files.
And so this segment is Kathleen Parker is filling in for David Brooks, so representing the right. And just to give you some feedback on Kathleen Parker, if you don't know who she is.
Do you have the headlines of the shit she's written?
Yeah, I have one headline.
Establish her conservative Republican bona fides, that she's not like a critic of Donald Trump all the time. She is selling the message of the Republican Party as though it's what's right for America. She's a Republican.
Yeah, I will say I don't know a lot about her. I didn't do a bunch of investigation, but she wrote an opinion for Washington Post because she's a columnist for Washington Post, and this was in July 2018. And the title of this is "Calm Down, Roe v. Wade Isn't Going Anywhere." So, not a great track record, all right? But this is Kathleen Parker, and she actually references where Donald Trump is getting his approach to. Now he's threatening to have ICE agents at polling locations in upcoming elections. And they were having this discussion on PBS, and in order to represent the right side, Kathleen Parker said that Donald Trump is taking a page from Mein Kampf.
Kathleen, to Kimberly's point, we've seen this from President Trump before. How much this time feels more organized, and because of that, more dangerous?
I agree. It is more organized. And, everything he does in terms of, he's trying to undermine confidence and faith in the electoral process all along. And with this now he's still clinging again to the 2020, we know it was a fully regular election. He lost, and he can't let it go because I think he's taken a page from Mein Kampf, frankly. The saying that if you tell a big lie often enough and repeat it, then people will believe it. And the theory was further refined by the propaganda head in Nazi Germany, Mr. Joseph Goebbels. And the idea is, apparently it's true that they would know, I guess, that people will believe a big lie quicker than they'll believe a small lie. So Trump goes big, with everything he does, big, beautiful bills, big, beautiful lie. And I think he's just going to keep going and trying to make people lose confidence. Maybe they stay away from the polls. Maybe they get together. His MAGA troops will come together and challenge the election results. I think you're right that ICE will show up, and I think the activists and the MAGA, the MAGA troops, so to speak, will be present at many polling places. Well, so it's very dangerous, because where does that lead? Ultimately, it gives Trump an opportunity to say. Maybe it gives him an opportunity to challenge the next election, whether it's the midterms or the presidential election in 2026, assuming he allows it to take place.
One thing I find notable about listening to conservatives who volunteer comparisons to Mein Kampf or Joseph Goebbels, like she didn't need to put Mr. on there, by the way.
She wants to show due deference.
Slow it down on that, okay? is the calm tone that she is speaking in when she's speaking about these issues. And, you know, you can tell because she's making a comparison to Mein Kampf that she's going to a place that is, you know, leveling up the analysis here and leveling up the connection of Trump to authoritarianism, but still is speaking about it in a way where she has distance from it. It's not something that's going to affect her. It's kind of like this intellectual exercise. It's out here, you know. And I think about this because when we're, you know, doing the show, I think sometimes we can get a little heated. And it's because we feel very passionately and connected to the harm that is being caused right now.
To the real world consequences that absolutely will be and are being delivered. Maybe not to people who look like us in our station, whatever, but they're being delivered. People are being harmed, disappeared, murdered in the streets. If you're a sufficient enough race traitor in the eyes of ICE, if you're standing in the gap for black and brown people who are being kidnapped and brutalized in Minneapolis, you're a race traitor, you must pay.
Right, and so she's talking about the president of the United States taking a page out of Mein Kampf and possibly interfering in upcoming elections to remain in power, but she's talking about it as though she's just kind of telling us about like the delicious steak dinner that she had with mashed potatoes and gravy and, you know, asparagus. Like
that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, sorry. The only thing I can think of really fast is like a food and a meal. And so that's...
What kind of a sauce are we talking? All right.
It's how do you impart the gravity of the situation when you're just kind of speaking about it so casually, you know?
Well, it's also it's because ICE agents surrounding a polling station like Steve Bannon talked about last week isn't going to impact her. They're not going to be gunning for white ladies. That's not
white
who they're
conservative
there.
ladies.
Yeah, they're not there to intimidate her. They're there to intimidate other groups. So there's really no connection. It's more academic in her mind, I think.
Yeah.
Or it seems that way anyway. I don't know.
Yeah. And, you know, the Nazis are listening and the Nazis know what the Trump administration is promoting, even if they try to deny it. They are happy that Stephen Miller has power.
Shadow President Stephen Miller.
Yeah.
Who runs, not only does he run point for Donald Trump, all of Donald Trump's most dangerous domestic and foreign policy, he is also the de facto leader of the Department of Justice. Pam Bondi takes orders from him. Kristi Noem has admitted that everything she's done has come at the direction of the President of the United States and Stephen Miller. When would a cabinet secretary ever say, everything I've done has come at the direction of some rando in the White House? She's a cabinet secretary. It's remarkable. He is absolutely shadow president and the de facto cabinet secretary for multiple departments.
And when I say the Nazis are listening and they appreciate what's being said and what's being done, one of these prominent Nazis that's kind of rising is Jake Lang, and he's on the ground in Minneapolis harassing people.
He's a pardoned insurrectionist.
He is, yeah, and this is actually
one of the violent ones.
This is actually another failure of the media. I don't know if we talked about this on the show in previous weeks, but he was the one who led a protest in support of ICE on the streets of Minneapolis, and he got cornered in the window of a building, and they were throwing stuff at him and pelting him with water balloons in the freezing cold.
He's also the guy who threw up a Nazi salute, I think here in DC, and said we don't want to raise our kids to be N-word lovers. Except he didn't say N-word. He's a vile little Nazi fuck.
Yeah, and so that's what I was getting at is that when the media was reporting on his protest, they called him a conservative activist. Okay, but they didn't talk about how he's a pardoned insurrectionist. They didn't talk about how he's throwing up Zeke Isles in the streets and using racial slurs. They didn't talk about who and what he is, that this is a movement of violence, of racial violence that he's leading. So he's on the streets of Minneapolis wreaking havoc. There was recently a prosecute ICE sculpture that was put in front of one of the federal buildings.
The Minnesota State Capitol.
Yeah, and he went and kicked out the letters so that it said pro-ICE, and he was arrested for this. And he decided to hold a rally this weekend where he was going to have a press conference. And apparently that didn't happen. Apparently he and a couple of Nazis that he is like palling around with just drove by protesters in front of the Federal Whipple building in the back of a U-Haul. So this is something we've talked a lot about on the show, is that these Nazis, a Patriot Front, they will pile in the back of these rented U-Hauls and then drive to wherever they're going to go terrorize a community. And then the cops will like usher them back into the U-Haul and watch them drive away.
Yeah.
You can't be in the back of a U-Haul as a human being, standing up in the back of a U-Haul. And so we always talk about this. Why are the cops allowing these Nazis to break the law in front of them?
Well, we've witnessed on the ground, white nationalist counter-protesters being treated with the utmost of respect. Outside Whipple, across the street from where we were standing, white nationalists were there as a countermeasure. And they were in an area that we would have been tackled and arrested and brutalized. And they're like, no, oh, you gotta, do it. They're just being treated.
They were standing on the side with ICE agents, on the side that is the entrance to the Federal Whipple building. We were on the other side. They started shooting pepper bullets at us to help the Nazi get to where he needed to be. They didn't shoot him with pepper bullets, but if one of us had walked to his position, we would have been directly shot. So we have witnessed personal protection of Nazis from ICE agents, and the cops are also doing some of this brutality because they watch the Nazis breaking the law in the back of this U-Haul, and they just let them go. Friend of the show, William Kelly, known as DeWoke Farmer Online, has continued to be on the ground in Minneapolis, and he was interviewed by Status Quo News after this happened, after Jake Lang drove by in the back of a U-Haul with all of his Nazi buddies, and this is Will Kelly talking about that.
I mean, they're supposed to fucking enforce the law. Why are they not pulling over people riding in the back of a fucking U-Haul? I thought that was a crime. But no, they protect them. That is where we're at in America. Fuck Hennepin County Sheriff. Agreed. So as you guys might have seen today, Edward Jake Lang rolled by with like 5 Proud Boys in the back of a U-Haul. They are so weak, they wouldn't even come out. They were supposed to give a press conference, but what they're really here to do is agitate the people. They want to cause violence. They want to create some narrative that we're some radical, violent Antifa leftists, but the truth of the matter is we're peaceful protesters standing up for the Constitution, standing up for humanity, and we will not be intimidated. We will continue to fight with our First Amendment rights until the Constitution is restored, until the Republic represents all people, no matter the color of their skin, no matter their religion, no matter their sexual preferences. It does not matter. All power to all the people.
Listen, Will is an amazing patriot. Mm-hmm. And also, we've been around Will a lot now, and I've never seen him put his hands on anyone. Will is absolutely using his voice, exercising his First Amendment right under the Constitution, because he's a combat vet who has remembered his oath, and he's one of many, many, many people out there, maybe not as don't have as much notoriety, but there's a lot of people who are dedicating their time and their resources to be out there, and he's just one of them. And everything he said there is absolutely correct. They are protecting these people.
Right.
It is the establishment, the power structure, ensuring that these Nazis are able to harass, are able to incite violence.
When someone like Will has been arrested twice now, once here in D.C. for using his voice against a Trump supporter that walked by him and they were exchanging words.
3 times.
And
the church.
And so he got arrested twice in D.C.?
You know, he got arrested by Secret Service when he was asking that guy why he was a Trump supporter. Then he got arrested outside Whipple, and then he got arrested after the church thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so he's been arrested repeatedly for using his voice. No violence, no putting his hands on anyone, nothing like that. For using his voice, he's been arrested. So we'll link to his GoFundMe because he's continuing to be on the streets of Minneapolis, continuing to uplift the voices of the people that are being targeted there.
And like I say about the GoFundMe thing, listen, he lives locally here in the Washington, D.C. area. I don't know exactly where he lives, but he's put his life on hold. If you've got an extra $5, it's dollars well spent if you're unable to be out there in the streets. And if it's not Will, find somebody who is out there and help them continue their activism and their protest against fascism.
So another concerning story that's kind of flying under the radar because of the hourly 5-alarm fires that we have going on right now, and there's so many different things that are pulling our attention, very important things, is a whistleblower complaint that was filed against Tulsi Gabbard, alleging wrongdoing. And this is happening while at the same time, all of those photos went viral of her looking like a spy on the ground of the Fulton County, Georgia raid. And I think you know a little bit more about this if you want to kind of set the story up.
Yeah, so, well, one, I think it's very important to highlight that this is all happening while she's being used in the course of a criminal investigation where the FBI is raiding the Fulton County Election Center, stealing ballots under color of law, and she's there. She has no law enforcement power at all. She has no role to play in this whatsoever, unless there's a foreign nexus that they're claiming of interference in the election in 2020, but they're not saying that. So she's being used. All this and this whistleblower complaint really does indicate that Tulsi Gabbard is being used outside of the scope of her position, which is a very important position in the United States government as the Director of National Intelligence, which is an umbrella organization that controls the operations of the CIA, of the NSA, of the Defense Intelligence Agency, of the different alphabet agencies who run our analysis and collection of intelligence. And there's a whistleblower who works within her office, within the purview of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, that is saying that she is hiding a very sensitive intelligence piece of intelligence that denotes a conversation between two people related to the Iranian regime who are talking about one of their contacts within Trump's circle. The Guardian is reporting on this. They're not saying exactly who that person is. I don't know if they know, but this is now being that intelligence cable, we'll call it, has now been redirected to, don't send this through the normal channels, send this directly to my office so I can protect Donald Trump, because she ran with this when it first appeared directly to Susie Wiles, the Donald Trump's chief of staff, in an effort to keep it secret, to keep it quiet. They have 21 days when a whistleblower complaint is made to get it to Congress so the full oversight can happen, and it's been months and months and months. We're going on almost a year now. So my main piece in this, and I'll shut up and we'll get to this clip, is that she is not being used as the Director of National Intelligence. She's being used as a pawn to protect Donald Trump, to ensure that when something comes up that jeopardizes American national security, she's there to make sure Donald Trump is protected, not the country itself.
And all of that is really important context that's going to set you up for this clip, which is Senator Mark Warner, the vice chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, talking to reporters. And this first clip we're going to do too, is just kind of an overview of the numerous problems right now, starting with the shifting stories that have been given about why Tulsi Gabbard was present at the raid at the office in Fulton County, Georgia in the first place.
I think we have now 4 different explanations of why Tulsi Gabbard was engaged on a domestic criminal investigation down in Atlanta. Her initial point was that the president asked her to be there. If that's the case, then we have a return to Nixon-era policies. Remember, it was Watergate where Richard Nixon put himself involved in a domestic political break-in at the Watergate. And all the rules that came after that were basically to prevent presidents from intervening early on in criminal investigations. So it begs the question, if Donald Trump told Tulsi Gabbard to go to Atlanta, then he must have known about this warrant being served before it was served, which is against all past protocols, rules. That was further manipulated by the fact that the following day, Gabbard got the president on the phone to talk to frontline FBI investigators. That is not the way our system works. Now, we see last night that it appears that the president now has changed his mind and saying he didn't know why Tulsi Gabbard was there. What the heck's going on here? You know, she is foreign intelligence, not domestic criminal investigations. And then this morning, I understand he's now said Pam Bondi begged her to be there. None of this rings true. I mean, to me, this has echoes of almost Watergate, where it appears like the beginnings of the cover-up may be worse than the crime that started. Furthermore, we've also seen evidence last night that D&I Gabbard's team was looking at investigating Puerto Rican voting machines. That, again, a clear violation, and they acknowledge there is no foreign nexus, so no foreign interference. What in the hell is D&I doing investigating Puerto Rican voting machines? That's against the law. And if there was any foreign intervention in this kind of overbaked relitigation of the 2020 election, if she's not shared that information with the oversight committees, she's again violating the process. So that didn't even get into the questions about the whistleblower, but this pattern of behavior where the White House and Gabbard can't get their story straight on what was clearly a fiasco that took place in Georgia demands further investigation.
Now, look, there's a number of different things here that need to be talked about. But first, let me say this about Mark Warner. This guy is a sober-minded, he's too dispassionate. He's too middle of the road. He's too cautious in his analysis of things. So if you're alarmed by listening to Mark Warner, the senator from Virginia, you should be very alarmed because this guy is milquetoast. He's not a bomb thrower. He's not a guy who makes headlines because he's out there with his fist raised. Donald Trump is a racist. He's kind of a Susan Collins. I'm very concerned by this kind of a guy. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if there's no big deal here, nothing to hide, why hide everything? The cover-up should be the 5-alarm fire that something so serious is happening that they don't want the American people to know, they don't want Congress to know, they don't want any oversight over what is taking place. Because we know Donald Trump does not care about our posture from a national security standpoint at all. If it gets in the way of his money, if it gets in the way of his free jets from Qatar, he doesn't care. He wants to enrich himself. He wants to establish himself as the richest man on the planet. And if national security gets in the way, so be it.
You know, you're hearing all that and you're thinking, okay, the Trump administration they're getting voting records. They're going after voting machines. What does this mean in terms of election interference? Could it be possible that a president who tried to interfere in the previous election by calling Brad Raffensperger and asking for a specific number of votes,
11,780 votes,
by, overseeing an insurrection on the state capitol, could it be possible that he would be interfering in another election? And when you hear everything you just heard from Mark Warner, that's the next question that naturally follows, right? Thankfully, a reporter, I think it's Mane Raju of CNN, decides to ask him of that specifically. Is he worried about a coordinated effort now, because of what he just said, that they are going to try to interfere in the upcoming election?
Senator, what do you think the objective was with Tulsi Gabbard? And do you think that she is trying to interfere with the 2026 midterms?
I think, unfortunately, it appears there may be a coordinated effort to try to interfere in the 26 midterms. They may even start to interfere prior to in the primaries, or in a state like mine where we may have a statewide referendum on redistricting. A year ago, I didn't believe this was possible. But this kind of action on seizing voting records, the potential of ICE trying to intimidate registered voters from showing up at polling stations in an intimidation move, the fact that this administration has dismantled much of the establishment that was put in place at the end of the first Trump term to protect our elections, the FBI Foreign Election Meddling Center, the ODNI's legally mandated foreign malign influence centers shut down, cuts to cybersecurity, relations to help state elections have better protections. I think we've got a president that can't get over the fact that he lost in 2020, and now in kind of a Nixonian effort is going to try to do everything he can to make sure he doesn't get another beating in 2026.
Again, you just heard the guy that I was talking about being milquetoast be alarmed. He said, a year ago, I wouldn't have believed this could have been the thing. Even after witnessing the insurrection against the country, even after witnessing Donald Trump incite, encourage, promote an attempt to overthrow the United States government by dispatching an armed, violent, white supremacist mob to the Capitol to hang Mike Pence. Mark Warner, I didn't think a year ago this would be possible.
After years of election denial, after years of refusing to accept the election results.
That's what I'm talking about with Mark Warner. He's that guy. And now he is alarmed as fuck. That should set off alarm bells in your head.
Yeah, and I know there's so much to this story, and that's why we didn't even get to the whistleblower aspect of this. But like we talked about when we were entering the story, there is also a whistleblower complaint aspect to this, where someone is trying to get the word out that they have something to share about Tulsi Gabbard, and that it is so critical to get this information out. You said when a whistleblower comes forward, they have 21 days. The agency from which the whistleblower is making the complaint has 21 days to get it to the Hill. It has taken months. The whistleblower's attorney recently made an appearance on CBS to talk about this complaint and what is happening behind the scenes and why it has taken months to get it to the Hill.
So back in April, our client filed a disclosure with the Intelligence Community Inspector General. It took some time for the decision to be made as to whether or not it would be urgent or credible for immediate dissemination to Capitol Hill. But that's irrelevant because our client, once they were notified by the Intelligence Community IG that a decision was made that they could not determine the credibility of the disclosure because somebody refused to cooperate with the initial investigation. But if taken to be true that it would be urgent, our client requested to have this transmitted to Capitol Hill. That is the law. That is what Tulsi Gabbard should have done. That's what everybody's talking about right now. But really what's at play is the underlying complaint, the underlying disclosure that's being withheld from the Hill the subject is Tulsi Gabbard.
And we don't know the nature of that complaint, is that right?
Well, we don't know the specific nature of the complaint. I have not seen the complaint because it's so highly sensitive. Now, the Director of National Intelligence in her office is saying because it is so highly classified that it's challenging to figure out how to get this to Congress. But frankly, if it's that sensitive and only limited members can see it, that makes it easier as to identifying into who to identify as to who to send this to. So that's one thing. The other thing that is new to me is that this statement that this somehow involves executive privilege, which I find to be fascinating because then the question becomes is why is that? I mean, the Wall Street Journal themselves reported that the Intelligence Community IG said that that executive privilege would obviously involve something involving communications with the president or confidential and private discussions involving the president. So the question is, what is there? Why is that privilege being asserted? But again, that should have no bearing. These are red herrings. This should have no bearing on getting this to the Hill. You know, as a colleague once said, sometimes you find yourself, in a tricky situation trying to figure out what the right thing to do is. You want to find the elegant solution. The elegant solution is here. It's in the law. Tulsi Gabbard is required to get this to Congress.
I'm so glad he brought up the executive privilege thing because executive privilege exists so that a president can receive counsel from aides and not worry about, am I going to be prosecuted or is there going to be backlash of this or am I going to be politically attacked for this? We need to be able to make high-level, important decisions to protect Americans on a daily basis, and I need to have a free ability to counsel with assistants and aides. And yeah, there's validity to that. So if they're expressing that this is covered under executive privilege, that means Donald Trump is involved up to his neck, and the people who are being discussed or on these calls are counselors to the President of the United States who may be up to their necks in FARA violations, the foreign registration of foreign agents. The Foreign Agent Registration Act, I believe, is what FARA stands for. That means that there are people who are doing nefarious shit relative to foreign countries, maybe Iran, that are involved with Donald Trump, and now he's enveloping them under the protection of executive privilege. That's a problem.
There's another allegation in this whistleblower report, which is that there's another federal agency implicated as part of this wrongdoing. And this was an aspect of the interview with the whistleblower's attorney as well.
So very quickly before we wrap up, the complaint also reportedly implicates another federal agency. And so what is that agency and where do we go from here?
I can't say what that agency is right now, but it does involve the intelligence community. And the thing is that where we go from here is this needs to go to the appropriate members on the Hill. This is supposed to go to the House and Senate intelligence committees. If this is so sensitive that only specific members, such as the chair and ranking member, are supposed to see it, get it to them. And by the way, if this was challenging initially to get to members of Congress, all that had to be done was somebody picking up the phone, alerting the Hill that, hey, we got something that's coming your way. We're trying to figure out how to get it to you because of some complexities. But the process can move. It does move. It does not take 8 months to get something like this to the Hill.
All right. Andrew Pakai, thank you very much for sharing this really crucial information for us. We appreciate it.
Because this happened back in May, I believe. Back in May. I mean, they didn't take long to get into insane corruption that endangers the national security posture of the United States. Donald Trump was inaugurated in January, and only in May, all of a sudden, foreign bad actors are surrounding the President of the United States, and they're trying to cover it up. And if there's another agency involved, it just amps up the cover-up even more.
And we still have a Republican Party that won't even come forward and say, hey, you shouldn't be posting videos of the former President Barack Obama and his wife depicted as apes online.
Right.
We can't even get Republicans to say that. They can't criticize him at all.
Well, there's one. Tim Scott said, this is the most racist thing that's come out of this White House, meaning there's been all kinds of other racist things, but this is the most racist.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were maybe 2 or 3 other Republicans who said something.
On the whole, though,
vaguely, vague criticism of it. But generally speaking, yeah, these are people who are not willing to say that Donald Trump is engaged in bad behavior and that it's a problem. They're still not willing to do that. And we hear all these reports all the time. They'll say it in private. I don't care what you have to say in private. You're doing nothing to hold this lawlessness accountable. You're doing nothing. You're standing by. You're complicit in it. And that's unfortunately the situation we're in. Another complicit actor, in a very different way, is Dr. Oz, who's the administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And
wait, what's his job again?
The administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
The
CMS.
Administrator for the administration, so they can administer the funds of Medicaid and Medicare services.
Dr. Oz, you know.
I just want to make sure he wasn't like the economy czar or something.
Well, yes, he recently went viral because he was making an appearance at this new initiative that he and RFK Jr. are working on together to support mental health and addiction treatment. There's a lot more that I could say there, but I'm not going to go into it. But what Dr. Oz essentially said at this appearance is that he needs to keep Americans healthy. And he doesn't need to keep Americans healthy because he wants Americans to be healthy. It's because we need to extract their labor for as long as possible in order to pay off the debt and have the economy keep going. And so some of his suggestions were delaying retirement. He says no retirement at one point. And he also talks about working earlier, which is child labor. So starting work as soon as you can. And then working until you have one foot in the grave is Dr. Oz's priority for keeping the economy going. And so he wants Americans to be healthy so that you can work until you're dead. And this clip went viral because Oh my God, what is he talking about? And he made an appearance on CNN where Wolf Blitzer played the clip for him and then also asked him to please respond and explain himself.
Earlier this week, as you well know, you drew some sharp criticism when you said kids should work right out of high school. And older Americans, you said, should put off retiring by a year to help get rid of the national debt. Let me play a clip for our viewers of that. Listen to this.
If we could get the average American, because they feel healthy, they're vital, they're strong, they have agency over their future, to start working a year earlier, right out of high school, or work a year later, not retire, or work better during their lifetime because they're healthy, it would generate about $3 trillion. $3 trillion to the U.S. economy. That would more than remove the debt.
Why should average Americans have to pay for problems created by Washington? And you concede that the national debt could also be eliminated by taxing the ultra-rich.
There are many ways of dealing with the debt, but ultimately my agency, CMS, we don't just regulate, we're the payers. And we should be using the money we pay out to save lives and improve the quality of life of the American people by making them healthier. If we do that, we unlock, Wolf, the greatest asset we have as our people. Right? It's not the energy we have under our turf. It's not all these other things we might quibble about. It's the people of America that are our richest asset. If we make our people healthier, they'll want to participate in life. You shouldn't work longer because you have to. You should work longer because you want to. You should retire, but you won't. Why not? Because you love the job and you're good at it.
He shouldn't retire.
No, I know. No, in theory.
I still wake up every morning and look forward to reporting the news.
That's it. That's what you want. You want to be here because you love it. If people get out of high school and we don't hold them back for being able to get a job and get involved in the work economy, if we don't provide ways for folks to leave the workforce, or they're forced to because they don't feel well because we're making them healthier, and if they want to work longer into their lives, I don't want to retire. I'm 65, right? Why would we retire? We want to do more, and we want to live the dreams that we still have. And that's what America should seek. If we took the average retirement age from 62, right, not because you have to, not by a law, not because Washington says it, but because you don't want to stop working, that's a great thing. And we generate so much value for the economy. It happens to solve the deficit. That's not the greatest benefit.
Thanks for coming in.
Bless you.
Thanks for calling. Thank you so much for being here. Look, he wants to extract value. Extract the value from the workers. I never want to retire. I'm a guy who's never actually had a physical job in my entire life. I'm good to keep going for a long time. What about the people whose bodies are broken down, who haven't been covered by health insurance because it's not provided by the government? It's not something that's prioritized by the American government. How about people who sit up on a fucking hot tin roof their entire life doing roofing, or somebody who's a plumber, or somebody who's hard back-breaking labor? No, you don't need to retire. Just keep on doing what you love to do, which is killing yourself slowly while the government extracts value out of you. Fuck you, Dr. Oz.
Yeah, and it's really easy for him.
Rich piece of shit, by the way. Multi-millionaire who has grifted, thanks, Oprah, the American people for decades.
Yeah, listen, working is very different when it is an optional thing. And so to hear Dr. Oz and Wolf Blitzer sit there and say, well, we don't want to retire. We like what we do. Yet you're living a very different life from people who have to work, from people your age, Dr. Oz, who are still living in a situation where they're wondering, can they afford to retire? They may have to work because they can't afford to retire. And so they have to do a job where they're on their feet. Maybe they're bagging groceries. Maybe they're working at the grocery store. Maybe they're doing something that is difficult for them to continue to do. And you go around and spread propaganda for a living. I mean, that seems pretty easy to do. You know, Wolf Blitzer, I'm sure, getting up and getting ready and going and reporting the news.
I'm not convinced they don't just flip him on and then put him in his seat and flip the on switch.
Yeah, maybe he's one of the AI avatars that Dr. Oz loves to talk about. And that's the other aspect they didn't play, right? Where in his appearance, he also said, in order to make rural healthcare systems sustainable, that we need to work toward a future where we replace healthcare workers with AI avatars to handle an intake process. Which is it? Do people need to work younger and older? Or do you want to replace their jobs with AI avatars? And, some of the champions for AI in the American population are people who are cheering on the erasure of their own jobs.
Yeah.
If you're championing AI, you should actually be more concerned about AI, because Republicans, it's something they don't want to regulate. They want to give corporations all of the power to use AI however they want, even if it means eliminating jobs, eliminating people's ability to make a living. So,
with no stopgap, no rescue measure in place, no UBI, no universal basic income, no way to replace income. It's just there's going to be people languishing in abject, death-inducing poverty, and fuck you, AI is good.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by it's very different to hear those two talking about continuing to work, because it's a choice that you make, and they could make a different choice, but they're not being grinded down by the stress of trying to pay their bills and trying to make a living and trying to afford rent.
Yeah, do you think Wolf Blitzer, and by the way, I don't think that Wolf Blitzer is like cheering on Dr. Oz. We're just using him as an example here because he's a rich white multimillionaire who doesn't want to quit working, because why would he? But when's the last time Dr. Oz or Wolf Blitzer or Pamela Brown, who's there on the panel too, didn't have health insurance? When's the last time they had to worry about whether to pay for a prescription or to pay for rent, and what credit card they're going to try to max out and then maybe try to make a payment on to get them just below so they have more money to buy groceries with? These aren't problems that these particular people have or have maybe ever had, but it is the problem of a mass swath of the American people.
And there is this conversation about like Nepo babies. I have favorite Nepo babies that talk about their Nepo baby status in a way that I think is really valuable. And one of them is Brian Williams' daughter. I can only think Allison Williams. She maybe talks about it in the best way, where she talks about how she had a floor and she knew that it was a floor that she could never fall through, and that allowed her to make choices and to be more creative and to take risks, because she knew having the father that she had would allow her to have this floor that she would never fall through. And people like Dr. Oz are talking about people like that. They're not talking about people who will fall through that floor, who don't have a floor, who don't have the support that they need to be able to make certain choices. When he's talking about a kid that needs to start working younger, that's poor and working class people that he's talking about.
It's more bootstrap mythology bullshit.
It's not something for a wealthy kid to have, like, a chance at getting what work experience might look like, where it's an option for them. He's talking about people who have to start working because they have to help their families. So this is something that is endlessly enraging. And there's another aspect of this, which I hear a lot from people who comment on my YouTube videos, which is age discrimination against people with disabilities. There are numerous people that are older who do want jobs, who are looking for jobs right now. And I hear from them all the time because they tell me, I'm so frustrated listening to Dr. Oz talk about this, because they've been looking for a job and they can't get hired because they're older or because they have disabilities and they're discriminated against. Yeah. And so this is another aspect of this too. He's acting like you can just go get a job if you want to. That's not always the case.
Well, they're not in the equation that he's talking about because they are less than. They're not as vital or important, or there's not as much resource to extract from someone who's disabled in the mind of Dr. Oz.
Right. So endlessly frustrating.
Can I give one shout out to another good Nepo baby?
Yeah.
Alexander Skarsgård.
He's another good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are other good ones I can't think of right now, but Allison Williams is definitely my favorite. I think she talks about it in such a beautiful way. And again, it doesn't take away from their talent. It takes nothing away from that to admit that you were given a privilege that other people don't have.
You're born on second base. Anyway, put yours. This is going on YouTube as well as in the regular old ears of viewers. You can comment on Spotify. You can also comment on the YouTube video. Tell us your favorite Nepo baby who has their head screwed on straight, that doesn't take it as a challenge to their actual talent or ability. You can also call and leave us a voicemail that we may play on our next show, 657-464-7609. And of course, you can email us, I doubt it, at Dollemore.com. We like to leave you with something funny or making fun of someone who deserves it, and that is what today's Asshole of Today segment is all about. If you can believe it, there was a rally where people took to the streets with picket signs in support of billionaires.
Yes, it was actually called the March for Billionaires. And I know it seems like a joke. It was not a joke. It was organized by a Mr. Derek Kaufman, and I think they interview him in this news package. But I really
did he have a boot in his mouth, down his throat, just gargling a boot?
It is remarkable. What I like about this news package, and this is done by a reporter, John Ramos, is they interview people that just like spotted the march on the street who were in absolute disbelief. They thought it was a joke. They're like, no, these people are not serious, right? They have to be joking.
I heard about it and thought it was a fucking joke. Like, you're really, because you know who's not out there picketing and marching in support? Billionaires aren't out there. It's literal simps and fucking bootlicking sycophants. Who's doing it?
The issue of income disparity is a serious one, but today's advertised March for Billionaires took a serious turn to the absurd. And organizer Derek Kaufman seemed to know it would happen.
So I sort of guessed it would be provocative. I also think that if it were not called what it was, then it would not have gotten the attention that it did.
The gathering at a park in the Fillmore district only drew a handful of supporters who seemed sincere in their opposition to California's proposed asset tax on billionaires, which they believe will drive wealth and innovation out of the state.
You know, I know a lot of people disagree with the framing of this, but I do really believe that that most billionaires have had a greatly positive influence on the economy.
A woman named Annie from Berkeley came up with the original idea.
I am a Christian. I swear on my God that I am being completely genuine here. We are being serious. We like billionaires. We want them to stay.
But the unusual notion of a march to support the wealthiest people in the world also drew a lot of media and some snarky opposition. People poured on the sarcasm as they discussed the plight of the downtrodden billionaires.
You know, you don't know when you look at somebody what their story is, what their inner struggle is. So you can't tell if somebody is carrying the weight of billions of dollars. It really is a heavy burden.
Roselle Swimmer spent yesterday creating a giant puppet of a chef wielding a butcher knife with the slogan, "Eat the Rich."
I wanted to match their absurdity with my absurdity to point out just how ridiculous they look by having a 10-foot puppet to chase them around.
With that, the march began, heading for City Hall. Along the way, it drew plenty of stares and a bit of outrage from small business owner John Quillinan, who supports the idea of a 5% tax on billionaires' wealth.
The fact that that is not acceptable to them makes me sick to my stomach. I would give up 5% of my net worth over 5 years to help my community. I own a small business. I'm not doing amazingly, and I would still do it to help people. What's wrong with you that you won't?
But Michelle and Jesse Foster were mostly confused when the procession passed them on the street corner.
At first we were horrified, and then I'm not sure if they're joking. They have to be joking.
It's a joke for sure. Cynical.
Has to be.
Yeah.
You don't think this is real?
Well, no.
I mean,
is it kind of hard to tell, though?
A little. It's a little scary these days. You can't trust anything, right? So... Anyway, I was on the phone with my daughter, and I'm like, I've got to hang up. I've got to go yell at these people.
When the group of supporters and detractors reached City Hall, they were still arguing. But it was still hard to know what to take seriously. That's the way politics is these days. So much of it seems like it can't possibly be real.
Was Gavin Newsom the organizer of this billionaire supporting fucking protest? Because he is opposed to this billionaire tax.
He is.
In California.
Yeah, he is.
Mr. Progressive Champion who sits down with fucking Nazis on his podcast. Yeah, no shocker there that he's in support of billionaires.
Well, and listen,
by the way, it's not about supporting or not supporting billionaires. It's about billionaires paying for their outsized benefit in our society. It's just a fair tax.
Well, you know, the new New York City mayor talks about an exchange that he had with someone who would be...
Who's that? Who's the new New York City mayor?
Zohran Mamdani.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And
I've heard good things about that guy.
He talked about a recent conversation that he had with someone who would be impacted by his wealth tax. And they told him that they were planning to leave because of the tax. And he said that he just talked with them for a bit and let them know that it would be about $20,000 would be the price tag. And they were like, oh, that's that's nothing, actually. I thought it was going to be a lot worse than that. And people do not want to leave places like California and New York City. Okay, most of the billionaires that are in New York, or a large majority, I think was in the news package, they said they live in the Bay Area. They live there for a reason. They like where they live. They like living in the best state in the country, California. I say that as someone who's not currently in California. They love the benefits that they have there, the food, the culture, the people, you can go to the beach and then you drive a little bit and you can go to the mountains, and they love that. Just like in New York City, it's one of the best places you can live in. The food, the culture, the travel, the access. You live in those places and you pay more because they're amazing places to live.
I also love the fact that he said, well, it's going to be like 20,000. I'm like, oh, well, who fucking cares? 20 grand. I'm a billionaire. Who fucking 20,000? Oh, I just coughed up 20. Who cares?
Yeah, and these people that are marching, what does 20,000 mean to them?
A lot.
That's a number that would be, I don't know. It would help a lot of people. It would also, if you got a bill that was $20,000, you'd be panicking. I mean, I would. But also, let's talk about the data, because if that doesn't make sense to you in terms of people aren't going to move and you don't accept that. Massachusetts, in the fall of 2022, there was a coalition of people that came together to try to fight a wealth tax in Massachusetts. And one of the things that they said was that people would leave. People would flee the state. It didn't happen. What ended up happening, and this was, I think, just a surcharge on incomes over $1 million that went into effect in the state of Massachusetts. The number of Massachusetts individuals with at least $50 million in total wealth grew more than 35%.
Not only did they not leave, they moved in.
And their wealth increased.
Yeah, their wealth
because
increased,
you just make money being so wealthy. Your money makes money. And the number of people making at least $1 million went up to 40%. Meanwhile, the state took in an additional $2.4 billion in tax revenue for 2023 alone, money earmarked for education and transportation programs.
Which hopefully will education and transportation make someone's life just a little easier, so they then can become one of those people who make $1 million a year.
And so
it's the system incentivizing the creation of wealth through education and lifting people up.
And so the people who organized this rally are actually giving into propaganda that tells you that the billionaires are the ones that are making the jobs. And if you're forcing them to pay their fair share, that they are going to say that they can't afford to be job creators anymore, or they're going to pull their money out of whatever company and then that's going to cease to exist. That's a lie that they tell you.
Yeah.
They have plenty of money. They can afford to keep it going. And if they make certain choices, it's not because of a tax. It's because they are hoarding their wealth, and they're more concerned about their wealth than anything else.
No, listen, Brittany, I think you're wrong. I think what's going to happen is, if this tax goes through, which it probably won't because, Gavin Newsom is in support of billionaires, that these people are all going to move to rural Arkansas. These billionaires, they're going to move to the Mississippi Delta,
right,
where they'll not have to pay as much, and they'll be able to just luxuriate in their piles of cash in an underserved infrastructure type of area. That's what they're going to do. Dollars to donuts. I'm going to put my money on it. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
What do you think? We'll drop the phone number one more time, 657-464-7609. And, of course, as always, you can email us, idoubitit@dollemore.com. We would love to hear from you. And also, we would ask, if you appreciate the work we do here, if you get a laugh, some enjoyment, some information, if we are just somebody good to hang out with, you can help support and produce this program right here by going to our Patreon. Patreon is just a web page that you could support all kinds of different creators who do all kinds of different things that you might like. We are one of them. Patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast is the address. And for $2 a month, you can help support this work and help produce this particular podcast. We love and appreciate you very much. Do you have anything else to add, lovely, talented, and scholarly Brittany Page?
I do not. Just look for the GoFundMe in the description or in the show notes for Will Kelly, the Woke Farmer.
Oh, we love and appreciate you very much. We will see you next time. For Brittany Page, once again, I am Jesse Dollemore, and this has been I Doubt It.